Hi class, this is Mashana. I want to go over ethical violations and board discipline for this video blog. So I went through the discipline licensees on the Ohio Counselor, Social Worker, and Marriage and Family Therapist Board website, which it was pretty easy to locate. They actually on the main page have a place where you click right onto discipline licensees, and then it brought up a much longer list than I anticipated, and you can click on each case and read through them, so that was easy to navigate. And so one of the things that I noticed that was more repetitive than others was violations of licensure, which was the biggest one was not meeting the standards for continuing education. And in the state of Ohio, it appears as though you have to have 30 hours of continuing education yearly to keep your license. That seemed like that was the main violation that I noticed, the main trend. But I also saw that blurring the lines of the counselor-client relationship was pretty common. Some counselors befriended clients after termination of services. Some were blurring the lines while they were still treating them. Some were accepting gifts and cards. There was even one that I noticed, I didn't read through all of them, but I read through quite a few. One of them even provided transportation and an attorney and legal aid for one of their current clients, which is a violation as well. So there were a lot of blurred lines there. And then as far as themes go, it seemed as though most of the violations were just of a careless nature. It seemed as though they just weren't fully informed of the ethical codes that they had to uphold, or they were just, they didn't appear to be purposeful offenses or neglect, I guess I should say. It didn't seem as though they were purposely trying to harm their client. And in most cases, they were just establishing the relationship with them and perhaps got a little too entangled in the relationship with them. So we were supposed to choose one particular case to follow, and I chose a case in which a counselor was in a personal relationship with a client that had been they had already terminated professional services. The professional relationship had already been terminated, but it had only been about a 3-month gap. And with this one, it was a romantic relationship, or at least that's what I gleaned from it, because it appears in most of them when they entered into some type of personal relationship, it specifically said that it was platonic, whereas with this one it didn't say that. It led me to believe that it was more than that, and it was just shortly after the services were terminated, but they didn't identify exactly the nature of the relationship. And that is a violation of the ACA Ethics Code A5A, which prohibits sexual and or romantic relationships with a client, their romantic partner, or any of their family members. It's also a violation of the Ohio Code of Ethics, 4757.36 C1 and 4757.504, which adds that a romantic or sexual relationship with a client cannot occur within 5 years of termination of the professional relationship. The ACA code doesn't really put a time limit on it, whereas in Ohio, if it's been at least 5 years, then it isn't a violation of their codes. So the board decided to suspend her license for 3 years. And then after that period, she would have to appropriately renew her license. And during those 3 years, if she should desire to return to practice, she had to continue on with training. She had to be retrained in ethics and that sort of thing. It didn't say anything about having any fines incurred, as far as I could see. And so then my question, the reason I chose this one is that I know this one was a romantic involvement with a client or a previous client, but mine is more of a non-romantic situation. I live in a small town and I intend to practice in a small town because the reason I chose this profession is because I would like to help with the drug epidemic in our area. And the issue with that is I already know in some form or fashion everybody in the area. And I guess I feel like it might be difficult to navigate how I can determine who I can even work with. And also, if I have a client and then, a year later, I bump into them in an organic way, a natural setting, and that sort of thing, do I have to purposely avoid them in order to not strike up some type of a friendship or that sort of thing? So I feel a little conflicted. I feel like maybe I need to consider not working in my hometown where I live now, or just figure out what parameters within to work that will save me from committing some type of ethical violation. Because one thing about this assignment was that I realized it's really easy to make mistakes. I mean, so much as accepting a card or trying to help a client and going above and beyond. I saw that one case, the counselor was in the birthing room with a client, and I feel it's natural in a helping profession to want to be there as much as you can for a person. And she was helping with an adoption process, and she was actually in the birthing room, and she had her license revoked for that reason. So learning where the boundaries are exactly and not exceeding them. You want to help as much as you can, but you have to know where those boundaries are, because it isn't worth losing your license over or causing harm to your client. So that's, I think, my question is being in such a small town, is it even wise for me to practice in this area? So, thank you.